One, two, one, two.
1 2 1 2. Sarah Aluko, welcome to Let's Do Humans podcast.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me. Sorry.
Do you know what's strange? Yeah, because the way I tend to start my podcast, it always confuses people because I don't have like a format in regards to like how I started. So I just jump into it, boom, and then people get hella confused. It's like halfway through, it's like, wait, has the podcast started yet? Has the podcast started yet? But first of all, I want to apologise for getting you out of your house when it's so nice and hot outside, because I know you'd probably rather be somewhere else than be locked up in here on the podcast.
Do you know what? No, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually... To be fair, I love the sun, so let me not even start complaining about it.
Yeah.
But it feels nice to be inside with some cool water.
Fair enough. Yes. Yeah. It's not as cool, is it? Do you know what's funny? Before you came in here, I spent the last like 20 minutes, apart from doing my own work, like I was like trying to like chase the flies out of the room, because I had my window open for like the last couple of hours and ended up being completely swarmed by flies. I was like, gosh, I got a recording coming up soon. I can't be having the guests like flapping their arms around and stuff. So
I actually hate flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, they ain't cute.
Oh, that's good. I've done a good job of getting rid of them.
Yeah, you have. I can't stand flies. Like, they actually have to die.
Yeah.
Which sounds so bad, but
No,
I'm sorry.
It has to be done. But welcome. Can you tell us a bit about who Sarah is before we get this started? Who's Sarah Aluko? Tell us about yourself.
How do you... Okay.
It's always the hard one, isn't it? Like, who are you? The life
I know.
question.
Sarah Aluko. Who am I? Okay, so obviously I'm a poet. I'm an author.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best way to describe it. I'm probably like thinking of my bio. But yeah, no, I'm a poet and an author. Yeah. I've always kind of written poetry for like a long time. Since I was in school, like I proper loved poetry. Like I loved English.
Yeah.
I was that kid who like loved their year 10 anthology. Like I loved it.
You was the one odd person in the class that liked English.
100, like trust me, I really did. Like I worked hard for those A's.
Yeah.
I was like, yes. But I just found that poetry was just the best way for me to express myself. But growing up, I just never it was proper like my best kept secret. Didn't tell anyone I was doing it. And then like a few years ago, so about, what are we in now? 2019. So 2016, like end of 2015, 2016, I was just like, why am I not taking it really seriously? Why am I not doing what I've always wanted to do? And I tell you, sometimes life can take you through some traumatic events that will like really cause you to think like, why am I not living the life I want to live?
Yeah, 100%.
And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna take poetry seriously, and like, just I guess to anybody, I just want to say that like, people are like, oh, if I do this or do that, but it's just like, why not? Like, because if you, honestly, it sounds so cliche, but if you don't actually try, you have no idea. So at one point I thought, how can I have this passion that all I want to do is write poems and not even try to take it seriously?
But what was that one thing for you though? What was the catalyst that made you think, okay, I'm going to take it out of the bedroom and going to show my talent to the world right now?
So, do you know what? I kind of was toying with the idea of I want to take poetry seriously, probably about 5-6 years ago. So before 2016, I was like, I want to take it a bit more seriously, but I just didn't really know how to. Yeah. And sometimes when you're like, I guess, talented in other skills, you just kind of pull it to one side, as in, I'll come back to that. So, but then when I was like, no, I'm going to do it, I had come out of a long-term relationship. I was heartbroken. I was like, look,
So it was the ultimate motivator, isn't it?
I'm going to do, because I feel like anyone who's experienced heartbreak understands that you go through a really awful time, and then after a while it becomes less and less awful after a bit, and then you're a bit like, so what's going on with me? Because the thing about when you've been in a relationship for a long time, you can end up obviously losing yourself because you know yourself like
continue to talk about Mike,
in that way, but then you get to a point where it's literally like a journey of rediscovery. Like, you're a bit like, what are my interests? What do I like doing? All of those things. And so that's what had happened to me. I was like, why am I not living the life I want to live? Like, it literally didn't make sense.
Like the case of why you're not living your truth, basically.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so there. So I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
We're gonna do this.
You have a transition which is a bit strange in regards to like coming from like an African background. You went from finance into poetry. So
do you know what? I never want to say I went from finance into poetry because I actually haven't fully left finance either. Like, I'm quite blessed in the fact that I'm a contractor. And the reason why I say this is because I don't want to give people a warped idea of how to do things. When you have a creative idea or whatever, yes, trying to figure out a way how you're going to monetize in that, it is hard. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. And I'm not an advocate for you want to do something, so up and quit your job. Like,
just drop
find
everything.
a way to work around it, and then like, bit by bit, things will start to make sense. So luckily for me, because I am a contractor, I can go through periods of time where I can really concentrate on solely the creative stuff until, like, which I'm working towards, so get to a point where I can eventually be like, all right, goodbye finance kind of thing. And it was a different kind of, like coming from an African background, I don't even want to say like it's prescribed that you're going to be a certain thing, but obviously, like your parents want the best for you, which is usually...
And does it look to the traditional
Exactly. And actually, to be fair, my dad didn't want me to work in finance. My dad actually wants me to be the Prime Minister.
Okay.
He still actually does.
That can still happen.
Nah, it happening.
After Boris, which just got announced today, actually.
Gosh. I feel like don't get me started on my political views, but he really wanted me to get into politics, and so I have a law degree, and like law was like our middle ground. But saying that though, I have to say like I've got really supportive parents. I've always had really support. Like my mum is so supportive. She's like any kind of creative project that I've wanted to do, because even though I do poetry now, that hasn't been the only creative thing that I've been involved in. But my mum, she's been an investor for me. She has like been like, yes, if you want to do this. My mum's thing is that like, she knows how hard I work and she knows my mindset. So she knows that I'm not going to, like, she knows I'm not lazy. Yeah. She knows that if I really believe it can work, she's going to give me that space to be like, hey, figure it out. Yeah, of course, she's like any mum, so she worries. So every now and then she's going to be like, Mummy, you all right?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? You cool? But on the part, I'm actually quite lucky. Like, once I got past a certain age, then my parents just literally let go. I think they were just a bit like, all right, get through uni, then ease up.
The thing with the support from parents also is that you have to give them something to support.
100%.
Because most kids, they want their parents to support them, but they're not showing their worth, or they're not showing any source of like talent or any movements. They're just talking about things and not proving it. Because there's this notion that African parents don't support creative jobs and so forth. But one thing I've realized is that they do support it as long as you give them something to see, something to support. If you're just talking about it, then they're going to assume that you're being lazy or you're trying to find a way out, an easy way out. So it's great that you had your parents supporting you likewise as well. And ideally, when I have kids eventually, I want them to explore their creative sources, but I also want them to be active in doing whatever it is that they do. So what was your initial like inspirations when starting off in poetry?
I guess
that you're looking up to.
So in terms of my favourite poets, so my favourite poet, and she's been my favourite poet for years, is a Somali poet called Walsa Shirey. She is the most amazing poet. Only because I think she's just found a great middle balance between traditional poetry and poetry forms and contemporary topics. Like, she writes beautifully. Then I have like, obviously, you got the greats like Maya Angelou and stuff like that. But yeah, I have to keep, like, to be honest, there's so many poets that I feel like I'm inspired by. Like, I can't even take away, even though I've almost mentioned more traditional page poets and people who write, I can't even take away like my proper roots, which was when I was younger. I used to watch Def Jam poetry on repeat all the time.
I love that, and Def Jam comedy,
I loved how like how confident they were, how they were able to give you a message. And the thing which I love about poetry is the fact that like it always sort of walks you in slowly and then almost just punches you in the gut. And I was like, oh damn, I can feel that. So there's loads of different things that inspire me. Like I like music a lot, and I just like to feel something. So ultimately, those are kind of like my influences. But yeah.
No, that's amazing. As you were just touching on your poetry, there was one line that I was reading from one of your poems, which was, "You're allowed to say you deserve more than this."
Yeah. And
there's a reason why I bring that one up, because I'm not sure if my interpretation is different from yours. I have an idea what your interpretation is, but I'll ask you exactly what your interpretation is. One of my mentors says this to me all the time. He's like, if you're speaking to anyone, any individual or someone that's looking to, I don't know, motivate you or whatever, the moment that they tell you you're fine as you are, there is a problem. he goes, as human beings, we should always seek to be better. We should always seek to want better for ourselves in terms of like our personal development. So when I read that line on one of your Instagram posts, that's the line that hit me. So I just wanted to know, what was your initial interpretation of,
that's really interesting actually, because so like on my Instagram, especially because I like, so on Instagram, I love to be able to like put quotes out there, share my thoughts and stuff like that, especially while I'm away, like working on full length poems and all of that stuff. But that particular, when I wrote that, like the start of the, like last year I had like a bit of a crappy year, especially when it came to like personal relationships, setting boundaries of people and stuff like that. And so when I came into this year, I was like, look, there's clearly lessons in life that are worth learning and relearning. So actually I started writing notes to myself, which is what I started to share on Instagram. So they were literally notes to myself. So when I wrote that, I was in I was traveling. I was actually in Cambodia.
Oh, nice.
And
I love East Asia,
I love traveling. So yeah, I was in Cambodia, and I remember thinking like about like a lot of things and being able to not say no when I needed to, not understanding exactly like what I deserve. So actually being like, no, it's okay to be like, actually this friendship isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Or being like, or looking within myself and be like, actually you need to be a bit more accountable here because you owe it to yourself and your character. It's funny that you've taken it on board in terms of saying that if someone says that you're fine, it's funny because I agree and disagree, because I feel like self-improvement is so important. That's literally what I talk about. But at the same time, I don't want you to feel that the person that you are, like, it's just, I don't want you to feel like it's another thing that you're not good at.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you are one being, and you have many different sides of you. Things you're going to be great at, things you're not, things you're going to be working on, things you can be like, hey, I can do better here. But when we have this thing, when we have our life, we're like, all right, it needs to be better.
Yeah.
It's like we are constantly like, there's no point where we just sit back and we're going to be like, all right, let me enjoy the journey.
I think the thing with interpretation, especially me interpreting your poems to suit me, is that it's taken in different contexts based on who you are. So myself and the person who told me this, we're looking at it from a business sense. So you see how how I'm taking what you're saying and input it into my life, something completely different.
That's the beauty of like any form of literature, is the fact that like, I remember one of my favorite books that I read. I remember the author basically said, like, when you read these poems, like, don't look for me, look for you. Yeah. And I think when you do, like, especially with like my work, anytime I like, I don't know, even when I'm signing books, I always say like, I hope there's a poem in there for you, because I feel like when you do read something, the first thing you try to look for is yourself. Like sometimes the beautiful thing about poetry is that it can literally be a mirror. So you can read something and think, damn, like I can see myself in
100%.
that. So yeah, like I completely get what you're saying.
Because for me, it was definitely a mirror, but then at the same time, I wanted to know what the author was thinking when they wrote it.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I can take it and twist it to suit me at the time, but it's a great idea to also get the author's perception of it, which is fantastic. But what I was talking about in regards to like the business side of things is that when you're developing or you're delivering a service to people, that you should always look to always look to deliver the best.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? And if you're a business person or you're looking to improve yourself as a entrepreneur or whatever it is, you should always look to try and improve yourself in areas that you can improve, not the pressures of life trying to be better at each stage, because if you're always looking for more, there is no end to it, especially if you haven't got a set target. So
you'll get sick very quickly.
Very quickly. You go into the dumps very quickly. So it's a great idea to, but you work a lot on Instagram, so a lot of your posts are like sort of like mini motivational scriptures. What's the reasoning behind that in particular?
So this is the thing with social media in general, is that as like it's hard with any other service. You'll be able to be like, hey, this is the service, do you want to get it or not? Or this is me. Or if you're a musician, maybe you could have pictures of you on tour and stuff like that, which fair enough, there are pictures when I do shows and stuff like that, but I found that actually sharing little poems on Instagram, little quotes and stuff like that was like a really nice way of connecting with people. There are times where I get the most loveliest messages. That's one thing I'm really, really grateful, is that my online community isn't like a mean one. Like you can see, there aren't any trolls. And if there are, and even if I do get trolls, they get swiftly deleted and not entertained, because I've worked really hard to create a safe space. So my whole thing is that if you come to my page, I want it to be a safe space. And although that sounds like a strange thing to attach to it, you'll be surprised how much like you can go on pages and like you're actually reading like really horrible stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You look at it and it's actually not very nice. And yeah, some things are hilarious and some things aren't very nice. But I was just like, you know what? I don't want this to be like my kind of page. I want like, I think poetry for me has always been a safe space, and I want to create that for everyone else. So actually me sharing quotes here, sharing my thoughts here, sharing bits of my poetry was my way of basically being able to connect with people. And the great thing about like Instagram and stuff like that is that you literally connect with people all over the world. And when people send you like literally like pages and pages and pages of explaining how certain things have touched them or advice or whatever, that's when you're like, oh, actually this is really
and you're onto something, aren't you?
Someone. So that's why I share on Instagram.
I think what tends to happen is that usually your social media will be a projection of the energy that you're putting out there. So as you're talking about these meme pages, there's always horrible stuff on there anyway. There's like people having random fights. There's just ridiculously awful stuff. So you're going to attract those type of individuals. But if you're putting out a certain type of love and energy out there, you're most likely going to reciprocate that, which is ideal for the type of work you do and the energy you're looking to put out there as well. That's fantastic. So there's an interesting bit of content that you recently put out. You recently done a TED Talk, so congratulations on that, which was amazing. I've watched it several times now. And the title hit me. It's like, no one's coming to save you, right? Or was that the title of your speech?
That is, yes.
Yeah. So can you elaborate a bit more about that speech and what was the motivation behind it and what was it about?
So I had thought so when I was invited to give a TED Talk, I'm thinking like, what will I talk about?
Where did that come from to start off with actually? What was the progression to get that TED Talk?
I woke up and got an email.
Amazing.
Which is actually amazing because I know that with TEDx you can I think you can apply and all of that stuff. Yeah. But I literally just woke up, got an email, said we would love to have you be one of our speakers this year, blah blah. This is the theme. Would you be interested? And actually at that time I was meant to be in Vietnam. But
so you cancelled your trip to do it?
I went out later because I really wanted to do the TED Talk, which cost me money to move around. But
it's an opportunity, isn't it?
Great opportunity, and I'm so glad because I met really lovely people on that journey. But so yeah, with the title, No One's Come to Save You, I called it that because I thought to myself, like, out of everything that's happened over the last few years, what have I actually learned? And although it sounds so no one's come to save you sounds a bit harsh, what I was trying to say is that you don't need someone to save you. And I feel like people are always looking for something outside of themselves to either get started or to carry on doing what they're doing. As I said in my TED Talk anyway, there's like loads of people who are like, there's always something else that you need to get. So you've started this podcast, which is amazing, but you could have easily been like, oh, well, I've got this really cool idea, but actually I don't have equipment. So now we're going to wait 200 years until you get equipment. And then you get equipment and then nothing else really happens. And then you can't improve what you do not have. Like, there's times I can read back some of my old work and I'm just there like, oh, cringe. But I also understand that that's always going to happen because I can only improve unless I start. Like when I started,
it's part of the process and the journey.
100%. Like when I started this journey, I knew nothing about like poetry as an industry, even in the wider sort of literary industry as well. Like it's like an industry like anything else, and it's really competitive and it's not easy. And so people might see like just a small quote here on Instagram, but they won't realize when you're working really hard because you are trying to, I don't know, attract an agent or you are trying to get a particular show or like whatever. Like there's and then sometimes I can end up like I've gone to. So when I knew I want to take writing seriously, I started doing like workshops and stuff like that. And people forget that it's like any other craft that has to be worked on. The same way you were in school learning how to write better and all the techniques. Those are like all the techniques you need. And you're up against people who have like MAs in creative writing and stuff like that.
Was that a daunting feeling though? So let's say you walked into one of the workshops and you have all these people with like vast experiences and
100%.
catalogs, endless catalogs. Was that daunting? How did you overcome that?
You just got to stick at it.
Yeah.
Recently, so I'm part of a mentorship program in which basically I mentor young writers in Nigeria ages 19 to 25.
Amazing. Yeah.
But so I just finished like a 6-week session with my mentee that I had, and you'd be surprised like how much I have to almost remind them that yes, this can be really daunting, but do not let this demoralize you. Like I was giving feedback to a friend who's trying to write a novel yesterday actually, and I was trying to explain to him that what I'm saying to you isn't going to make you feel good, and even if you have to take a couple of days out, even a couple of weeks out, while you get inspired again, while you gather yourself up together, because you're going to come back to this. And I say this because I remember my mentor, I remember I gave her a bunch of my poems and I was so excited, and
shut down.
We had our session and there was like red pen over everything.
Gosh,
everything. Oh, why have you used this word? Do we have to keep talking about this? Is there not enough way to describe this? And I tell you, like, I would look at it like, but I thought I was good. Like, everyone on Instagram had told me I was really good. Like, what's going on?
That's the harshest crowd as well.
Trust me, it was like really, really hard. And like, for a few days I was a bit upset. But then I was like, actually, I want to get better. And when you actually read the feedback, it's so constructive. Like, now I know how to edit my own work. For anyone who's writing, that people sometimes forget how much sometimes we repeat ourselves in a weird way, and you have to also the whole point is challenging yourself. Like, someone could give you a task, I don't know, so I tend to write a lot about like life. So I write about relationships, I write about love, I write about being black, I write about all of that stuff. But imagine someone said, okay, write about everything you said, but do not use any of those words. Like, that's a task. You know what I'm saying?
You have to be creative with it now.
100%. And that's how you get depth to your work, you know, and that's how I've learned along the way. So in terms of getting through feeling like overwhelmed, the truth is just stay in the game. You got to stick at it. Like, if you need to take some time out because you're like, hey, like, I'm not feeling great right now, all right, do other stuff. I always say when I'm not writing, I'm reading, because you want to keep being inspired. You want to be like, all right, okay, I'm not writing right now, but actually I read this thing, it was super dope, or I went to this show and it was amazing. Like, keep yourself inspired.
And it's like constantly submerging yourself in the field of interest as well. So
100%.
you can say you're a part of something. Let's say you're a writer or a sports person, but if you're not completely submerged, you're never really going to grow with the industry, are you? So that's great. How was the overall experience though, doing the TED Talk?
Do you know what? So before the TED Talk, oh my gosh, I was so nervous. It's weird because doing like a show and stuff, like, you're familiar with your own poems. And although that can be daunting within itself, like, so I've got to the point where I've actually got some real great public speaking hacks that have actually helped me.
Such as, go and help us out.
Which is why, like, it's funny, when I did a TED Talk, everyone kept saying, so you didn't seem nervous at all. And I was like, are you kidding me? My belly was in stitches beforehand. But so one of my hacks is that anytime I do a show that I'm like really nervous about, I'll always wear a long dress or something covering my legs, and it just simply so that people don't see your legs shake. And you know,
so just to touch on that, I mean, I was always under the assumption whenever I'm doing a public speaking that my legs were shaking. But when I ask people in the crowd, they never notice it. So I think it's more of an internal thing than it is external.
You say this, but actually there was a lady who went before me.
Oh, she really shaking?
She was so nervous, and she was holding a piece of paper, and I told you the paper was like...
No way.
And the problem about shaking is that you throw off your audience, so now your audience feels nervous as well. And that's what adds to the whole like tenseness. And so what I found is that, so one of my hacks is that I'll wear something long, or something that's not super like fitting, unless I'm feeling good about myself that day.
Super confident about it.
Just in case your legs do start shaking, no one's watching your legs. I also find that sometimes when you are in front of a very large crowd, literally the very first few words can just come out shaky because you're scared. And I feel like when you can hear yourself, literally just pause. Doesn't matter, because no one actually really knows you're pausing. That's the thing. So I could be like, hi everyone, my name is Sarah. But if I'm like, hi everyone, my name is Sarah, like, and if I can hear it coming out shaky, stop for a second. Okay, so I've come here today to say X, Y, Z. And I'm telling you, just taking that pause allows you to get back in control, because as you keep trying to talk through your shakes, everyone's like, oh damn, she's nervous.
And it starts getting worse and worse and worse.
100%. So in terms of that experience, so before the talk, literally in the dressing room before, I was like so scared, just because you're just like, oh,
you think, what did I get myself into?
Such a serious platform, and you're like, what if I don't say it right? And this is like coming as a speaker as opposed to coming as a poet, and I was just like, oh, how's this gonna happen? But honestly, I couldn't have asked for like a warmer reception.
Oh, amazing.
People were so lovely. The feedback was amazing. People that came up to me said some comments that I was like, oh my God, me.
Yeah.
And then people kept asking me like, oh, are you going to be doing, like, why don't you do public speaking? And I was like,
yeah, because there's not much content.
Slow down.
There's not even a lot of content in regards to you even reading out your poetry online, is there?
It's because
what's the reason?
It's because I'm more of a page poet, so I do like readings and I write mostly. And I feel like in time, like that stuff will all come. I'm so picky about like what I want out there. So I love visual art. I'm so like, I see so many visuals and I told you as well, like I'm really into music. I'm into so many different art forms and I love seeing the way poetry can cross between different art forms. But because I am like that, I want to be able to give like a beautiful body of art. And that takes time and like not just churning out things because it's like, all right, she's here, this is what, like, no, like, you ever like read something or watch something and you think, wow, like they actually were able to create something that was timeless. Like,
they really put it all into it.
Yeah, like
done it properly.
It's actually timeless. Even if we're like, oh, we don't write like that anymore or we don't do this anymore, it's still timeless. People can still read it, still enjoy it. Still, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you're like, for me, I'm like, that's where I want to get to. I want to like write something that's timeless. I want to make visual art. So so I'm working on new stuff now. And when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, this would be dope if I could have it like this.
Yeah.
And that takes time. So I'm just like, in time, those things will come, but I want it to be completely organic
100%.
and I want it to be like of great quality, basically. So yeah, and
that's
I'm
fantastic.
like,
We'll definitely look out for that. There was another thing that you touched on during your TED talk, which I find quite intriguing as well. You were talking about standing out, standing out in a crowd, even if everyone's doing the same thing. Making yourself stand out. Can you just elaborate a bit about that as well?
So the kind of premise of my TED talk was that you can still make moves even if you're not the one who looks particularly special and everyone's like, it's you. Like, you can still very much flourish when you're part of the majority. And the reason why I spoke about that is that I feel like we are always being told like, oh, it's because that person's special. It's because you're special. They've got this special thing they've got going on. But then it's like, so what happens to the rest of us? Do we just pack up and go home? Like,
and just leave them to it?
Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, and I find that the way you can stand out is by doing what you do and doing it well.
100%.
Because actually, it's that longevity that people will be like, all right. And the reason I say doing what you do well is that with anything, you would need to work on your craft, build your craft, all of that stuff. And as you do that, you're going to naturally progress. And the funny thing is that the people that we're calling special were actually once like in the place that you're at.
100%.
Like, but it's just because you're seeing them now, you're like, oh my days, this person has got, I don't know, 10 books and they're touring around the world and they just signed a deal for 7 figures or whatever. Like, and you're literally, as cliched as it is, you are seeing their chapter 50 and you're like on
you're not seeing the
7,
backstory,
like,
really.
Exactly. So my thing is that if you want to stand out while you're part of the crowd, do what you're doing and do it well, because 100%. It doesn't actually matter that everyone else is doing it, because people are still going to come to you. Like, if I didn't share my poems, because I'm like, oh, there's loads of pages on Instagram that share poems, then I wouldn't be able to like do what I do. I wouldn't have had like the opportunities that I've had if I was just like, all right, someone else has already done that, let me just...
Yeah, but mentally, how do we break that boundary though? Because there's people out there with like inbuilt skills, and it's wonderful that obviously you're putting out the motivation for them to do it anyway. But how can we break that boundary of feeling shackled by the fear of our work not being unique or good enough?
So I just feel like the only way you can break the boundary is literally watching more people do it. So like, I've done it, and then in that time I've had countless emails, messages, people calling me, oh, actually I've always wanted to write a book, how can I do it? Actually I've wanted to do this, how can I do it? And actually when they do ask me, my whole thing is that, are you willing to put in the work? Are you going to like, because I feel like as a creative especially, there is a duty to put out your best. And I feel like sometimes people see the end goal and they're like, yeah, I can do that, let me just wake up tomorrow and start doing it. But it's like, actually, like, there is such thing as like bad poetry. There is such thing as a bad novel. That's why
I never thought there was such thing as a bad poetry.
Yeah, no, there is.
Or maybe because I don't look too deep into it.
The reason I say that is that I don't want to be like, oh, that person's poem is like trash. No, it's not that. What I'm trying to say is that I can read the perfect poem and still not like it. Yeah, but it's still a good poem. It's followed poetic technique. It's got a great form. In terms of traditional standards of literature, it's followed it. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, I might not necessarily like it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a good poem.
100%.
Do you see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is that, like, if you are naturally good at something, or if you know you're willing to put in the work to be good at something, seeing other people take that leap to do it. Like, since you've started this podcast, there are people who are going to be around you being like, you know what, like, he did this podcast, I've been wanting to do mine, and actually now I want to do it. So I just think we just need to see more people doing it. It's even happening already. Like, seeing more, like, I don't know, people get more different kind of opportunities, whether from social media and stuff like that, has actually inspired people.
Oh, definitely, he's encouraged people to
be
actually
like,
take the
hey,
leap.
there's another way to make different sources of income. Actually, there's another way. I didn't think I could do this, and I can try it. That sort of thing.
No, most definitely. Even since starting the podcast, I've had people contact me regarding like equipment, setup, and how I went about even doing it initially. And I was like, you know, we were discussing it before the cameras came on about like I done it the reverse way. It wasn't something that I was into, and I kind of went into it and then gradually started falling in love with the whole idea and concept. But I was just like, dude, I kind of got forced into it, as in like someone told me it was something that I would enjoy and something that I'd be good at.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't want to put myself out there in the first place. I don't want to be out there. But then when I started doing it and then the feedback was coming in, that was also encouraging me. So it wasn't necessarily the numbers, it was the feedback in regards to what people were saying on a personal level behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this makes sense now. People are getting something out of it. Then there needs to be more of this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was under the assumption that anything that I have to present is already out there, so why do I have to do it anyway? But there's always an audience for someone, and there's always someone that's going to visually prefer to listen to you than listening to someone else. So
100%.
it makes sense to like get rid of that fear and just doing it anyway. So no, definitely that makes a lot of sense. And obviously we mentioned earlier on that you're an author, which is like a fantastic achievement. Can you tell us about Firstborn?
So Firstborn,
you're not a child, by the way.
yeah.
It's your baby, but yeah.
It is really my baby. But basically Firstborn was my first collection that I released on International Women's Day in 2017. And that was just on like within the theme of what we've been talking about, but that was literally me starting. I always say that Firstborn for me is about starting, it's about sharing. Like that particular collection was very specific to me where I was at the time. It's literally short poems that are all about my journey of self-discovery. And even though now I feel like I've grown so much as a writer since then, and even though now my writing might look slightly different or whatever, I still will always look back on that in terms of like, this book was like healing for me. It was about starting. It was about it's about so much more than it, even just the words on the pages. It was about being like, okay, I want to do something, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see it through. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna see what comes out of this, and yeah, like I have to say, like when I was putting out the collection, I was really nervous. I felt exposed. I didn't know what it would be like, but the reaction was so positive, so overwhelming. It actually was like, wow, like this can actually be a thing. Like, you know, like sometimes you're so hell-bent on, I just want to get my story out there, or I just want to do this, but you don't actually realize that. Have you actually thought about what happens if people do receive the story? Like, what happens next?
What's the follow-up?
But no, it was it's been a very, in terms of Firstborn especially, it's been like a very warm journey is the best way to describe it. Like it's been nice because even though times where I felt stuck and stuff like that, I had help. Like my manager Celeste, she's like amazing, so shout out to her. She's like the most organised person I know.
Definitely. I had a few emails from her.
Honestly, she's like so organised, and I felt like she really believed in what I was doing. And I feel like when you put yourself out there, you're like, right, this is what I want to do. I genuinely feel like things start working together.
100%.
I feel like you put that energy out there and it comes right back. I think the moment you say, all right, this is what I want to do, before you know it, and even what I was talking about in my TED talk about not being afraid to share your dream, that when you start putting it out there that, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I'd love to do, you will start meeting people who are doing those same things. If you're having a chat with me saying, oh, do you know what, I've been searching for, I don't know, an engineer, like I'm gonna remember that. So when I'm having a conversation with someone else who's like, oh yeah, like I'm an engineer, I'm gonna remember like, hey, someone needs an engineer. Like that's literally how like logically how life works, you know.
I think there's this weird thing about people being scared to share their ideas and their thoughts because they feel like people are going to steal them. But then the thing is that, as we already talked about abundance, like there is no such thing as someone stealing your idea and running away from it.
No, but I don't know. See, okay. Over the slight, I agree, but I also say disagree. It's just that just what I've had done to me as well is that some of the fears of putting your work online is that people can steal it. So like people can you can literally put, like, I get what you mean in terms of like the idea itself. No one can steal that I want to do poetry, for example. But like I can put my work online and I can be like, hey, credit me, my name's on it, and you can, because it goes so far out. You could randomly have, but the good thing about having a nice online community is that people will tag you and stuff. People will say like, hey, that's not yours, that's so and so.
But that's if someone's trying to claim it as theirs, though. It's different if they're sharing it for sharing's sake and then claiming the whole
of course.
Because if I was to post one of your poems right now and not credit you and be like, oh, look at this wonderful piece, like it's different to me saying, oh, look at this wonderful piece which I wrote.
You'd be surprised.
Or do people still do that?
Yeah, people still people's, if people can still people's identities, and if they're the whole program catfish, then people are more than happy to steal your works. Which is a shame, because it's like, guys, don't do that. But I've also learned that also comes part of the territory, which is why now I've actually been a bit more protective over what I put out there, because from 2 points of view. One, a business point of view, like when it's like when you are like paid to like do readings, write poetry, whatever. Actually, what people don't realize is that when you're putting on Instagram and putting it for free. Do you see what I mean? True. So then that's why I've come more to like kind of sharing my thoughts and stuff like that. And plus it's Instagram, so you can't really put full length poems anyway, because people aren't really consuming it like that anyway. So now I'm like, don't get me wrong, it's fine. I can put out short quotes, I can do stuff like that, and it's nice. And it's nice to start dialogue. I like starting dialogue, so it's nice. But in terms of like actual poems, you got to remember that if you want to like write a book, or you're trying to write a manuscript or a collection, like you want someone to buy it. So if you put it for free,
so you have to use something to entice them to then want to seek more, and then the more comes in the back end. But so when you were putting out the book, as a journey, did you seek out professional help beforehand, or did you write the piece and then?
Like I was kind of saying in my TED talk, so I had written my manuscript, right? And I think it was so different to the process of writing a manuscript now, because I wasn't trying to write a manuscript. I was literally just like, I had so much in my mind. I was really, around that time that I was really, a lot of the writing was so emotive. So I was really like, oh, do you know what? Let me write, this is how I'm feeling, blah, blah, blah. So I realised that, oh, I've got all of these poems and this feels like something. It feels like a lot of work, basically. And so then that's when I set up a focus group, because I really wanted feedback, because writing can be very lonely and self-indulgent. And some mornings you can think this is fantastic, and others you can think this is awful. So you need feedback. Like, do people feel anything? What are their thoughts on it? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the feedback was super positive, which really encouraged me.
Who's the feedback from?
I literally set up a focus of random people. So people I knew, people I didn't know as well. People like, just because I want like men and women, just so I can get like, anyone who I could gather together, I gathered them together. And I really appreciate that, especially my friends who took part in that, because that really helped me, because if anything, it was like encouragement to be like, I think you could do this.
You've got something here now,
and then it was the whole process of, do I get a traditional publishing house? Do I do it myself? Blah, blah, blah. How did this work? And I think the most of my journey, I felt so out of depth at that time, because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to release it. I knew all of these things, and I could literally visualize my book in my head, all these different things. But then I was like, I don't know how to do this. You know?
Then comes the process.
But I started doing research. I talk about this in the TED talk, but I started doing research. Because when it's your dream, you can't afford not to do research. 100%. And actually, there are some things that you will learn along the way. So for me, I learned that actually there's loads of opportunities for poets. There are like prizes, competitions you can win, where the prize is that they will publish your book for you. Like, there's so many different things that you learn along the way, but you don't always know until you are in that industry. I learned that, you know, even some publishers may look at your manuscript, but most traditional publishers won't look at your manuscript without an agent. These are all things that you like have to learn.
So you need a representative to push it to them.
100%. So and even then a specific that you need a book agent because they have those contacts. So you have to get picked up by an agent. So that's the whole process in itself. But I knew within me that I wanted to start. So even when I did get so I got an offer, and at first I was like, yes, I've made it. This is fantastic.
How do you get the offer though? So let's just take this.
So I found the publisher who they're based over here and in New York, and I think. And
you contacted them with your work.
And so I like online. I found that they were taking submissions. They also looked at poetry collections, blah blah blah, and that you didn't have to have an agent. So I was like, let me submit it. But at that time, I didn't even know if they'll get back to me. Didn't know what they'll say. So I was like, I still got to figure out how this can go. When they did, they were just like, yep, it's gone through a couple of rounds. We think this is an interesting read, blah blah. Would like to work with you. I was like, yes. When they sent the contract to my house, I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah, we made it.
Only because I had this massive fear of being like that person who's selling books out of their boot. I don't know why. I just in my head I was thinking, I'm going to try to flog this everywhere. It's going to be so embarrassing.
You're going to have to attend every event and ask people to buy your book.
You have to get out of that mindset. It's so bad. And this is why I called it like no one's coming to save you. It's this idea that you need all these different things. Like I'm there putting my nose up at someone who's selling their books and getting 100% of their profits. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. They're building a direct connection with the consumer as well and their fans. 100%.
Do you know what's crazy? Because even if you get your book published, you don't get you self-publish it or whatever. When you do a show, it's those people who are directly in contact with you who want to buy your book. And I learned that definitely learned that. And those are like your most loyal customers, your most loyal fans, your most like those are the people that like stick with you. So once I got myself out of some, I guess, preconceived ideas and that kind of mentality, I was actually more open to trying to do it myself. When they came back to me, gave me the offer, I read it again, tried to get advice, all of that stuff. And the truth is, it just wasn't good. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my book.
Yeah.
The timescales didn't work for me. What they were offering me didn't work for me. And I was just like, there has to be another way. And the reason I say important to research is that I started to look at people who were literally in the place that I wanted to be. And when I looked at their journeys, I found that loads of them had self-published or at least started out self-publishing before being taken on by a major publisher later. And the game has changed. People want to know what you're bringing to the table before they're investing into you. And that's the reason why, like I was saying before, it's not always about... It's not, no one's saying that this way is the right way, this way is the wrong way. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that you need to be in a position of power to be like, actually, what is best for me at this particular time? So now I feel like I have more to bring to the table. So I'm having different conversations now than I was before because no one knew you before. That like companies don't know if there's interest in you and stuff like that. But then you spend time, you do the work, you work hard.
You got bargaining power now.
100%. And then when people do come, you still have the choice to be like, actually, maybe I can do this by myself. And part of the reason why I even shared this kind of part of my story is because I did choose to self-publish, and I'm so grateful that I did because, one, the type of collection that it was, two, I'm on Instagram, like, I know where the customers are coming directly to me.
Yeah, you got that control and power, don't you?
And the good thing about, like, so I published with Amazon's independent publishing company called CreateSpace, and the thing is that they have like access to loads of like distributors and stuff like that. And so before, I remember when I went to self-publish, someone said to me like, oh, you know, like your book would never be in major bookstores and stuff like that. But my book's in like Barnes and Nobles, like really big, do you know what I'm saying? So like, yes, it can actually happen. It's literally all over the world. Like sometimes if I like Google where the book is, I'm like, sorry, like how'd you get there?
What's the weirdest places ended up that you found?
So there was like a bookstore in, actually no, there's like a couple bookstores in India that stock it.
Oh wow.
And then I think the thing that was weird wasn't so much as that it was on eBay, and I found it very weird because I was like,
because eBay seems like an independent seller that's flogging your book.
And but that also made me feel uncomfortable. So what I did also want to say, there's pros and cons to all of the journey. So I started to do it myself, and I guess the share in terms of royalties was more. But actually going through like Amazon, there are times where you can see very little of that money as well because it's gone to so many different retailers. but then I switched up again. I started selling books directly, also from my website directly, so people getting it directly from me. So there are ways around it, but with all of what I said, you can't do any of this unless you're in the game to play it. Yeah. So if you don't start putting yourself out there,
100%.
How do you learn how to do these things?
I had a talk with a gentleman recently, and he was talking about how his business expanded and got to this stage that he got. And he said initially when he first started off his business, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want no one to know about the business. He was just working in the background. But then someone had told him that he should start opening his mouth and talking about what he does. So he realized that every time he went into an event or anytime he met up with someone, he was like, oh, by the way, I do this, I do this, and I do that. And randomly, somewhere in a pub, he ended up meeting a gentleman who ended up giving the biggest opportunity of his life. So he went from a business, he doesn't really want me to mention who he is, but he went from a business that was like, I think like £250,000 in deficit from loans that he had taken from family and friends to this one opportunity from a guy he met in a pub. The following year, he took orders of about 15 million gross.
Wow.
Just from him opening his mouth and speaking to a random person in a pub. So this person gave him an opportunity, which then meant that his business was taking ridiculous orders from the following year onwards. Yeah. So he just emphasized to me that I need to start talking more about what I do and 100%. What it is I'm trying to get out there in the world. So if I'm doing a podcast, when I do meet people, be like, oh, I've started a podcast, by the way. Check it out. Do you know what I mean? Let me know what you think.
You got to forget, like, you can't forget that people identify with people.
Yeah.
And like what I found, like, so I remember when especially when I first started doing poetry, people were so like drawn to me, and I kept saying, why do people believe that it's gonna be good? They haven't even read it, they don't even know. Like, you know,
you just hear poetry like,
it's like, why do you believe me? How do you just believe this could be awful? It's not, guys, I don't think it is. But
that's great.
What I'm trying to say is that it's because people identify with you. It's usually when people are investing, they invest into a person.
100%.
Very rarely it is what they're actually doing, because there are loads of ideas out there. But I find that, like you said, like if you put yourself out there and you are talking to people, they fall in love with you, and then they fall in love with what you have to say.
No, it's definitely, and obviously it comes from you believing what it is that you're doing as 100%. Well. So if you're speaking about it with conviction, like people are gonna get that energy off you, so they're gonna be like, oh yeah, like he or she believes in what they're doing, so I'm gonna then push forward. That's amazing. What would you say is some of the biggest lessons that you learned throughout your journey so far in poetry?
You are not always going to be inspired. Just because you are doing what your passion is doesn't mean that you won't get tired. Drained. It's so funny because you can be doing what you're passionate about and still feel the same sort of feelings that you do from like a job you hate. Because at the end of the day, it's still like there's still work that's involved. You still can get mentally drained, and actually sometimes I always have this big fear of like poetry feeling like a job, but then it's hard because as you get more successful, quote unquote, that's what tends to happen. But because it's so close to you, you're like, so when you have like deadlines, commissions, whatever, and you're thinking, but I'm not feeling inspired, but I need to write about whatever, those days are hard because you're like, all right, how are we gonna rev up this engine? But that's how you also train yourself to be a better writer and a better poet, because you can't always wait. So if you're the type of person who writes when you are down, which a lot of people tend to do, because that's where like raw emotion tends to come from. And there's nothing wrong with writing when you're in an emotive state. I've done it many times before. But the problem with that is that it almost becomes like self-harm. You're going to wait till you're like upset again before you can get anything out. Like that's an awful way to live.
It's like musicians that release their greatest music after a breakup.
And
then when they're happy, people are like, oh, the music is trash. But you don't want the person to be happy.
That's not fair, because they need to be happy.
Yeah, they need to be, definitely.
Someone said something to me, and I have to just really reject this because, but they were like, "Oh, Sarah, like, you know, you're gonna have to just like stay single," and I was like, "Sorry," and they were like, "Yeah, like it's part of the brand, like they can't handle you if you were like, oh yes,
all happy and loved up."
But no, you guys can, because I would like to be happy and loved up. I'm getting old, but no, not that has a bearing on it. But I do think that we need to start allowing people to be like a complete person. But I do believe that once you have like skill, it doesn't, like, you'll start to find that the more and more you write, people aren't looking for you. Like I said, they're looking for themselves. And actually, when you are writing skillfully, forget where you're at in life. Like, I see poetry almost like a window, and you almost let people in for a little bit, and so people need to be like, oh snap, okay, but you decide when you want to like close and open that window, if that makes sense. And so I feel like, yeah, what I'm trying to say is, in terms of things that I've learned, yeah, you're not always going to be inspired, but as you grow in terms of like developing your skill, that will get easier, and those periods of feeling uninspired will pass. Yeah, that's what I've also learned. Will definitely pass, and you need to start figuring out, when I'm feeling inspired, why was I, and how do I get back there, kind of thing. So now I've like learned, like I know that some people can, I don't know, sit in a park and be like, oh yes, nature, let me write. That is distracting as hell for me. If I could be sitting in a hot park trying to figure out if my laptop's going to stay on, if I can see, like that actually practically doesn't work for me. But actually what I do find is, if I read an amazing collection, or if I go to a great show, or if I'm inspired, or I see some great visual art, when I'm super inspired, I feel like writing. So actually I can go to a show and come home and be like, right, I'm going to write, because I'm feeling that way. So I feel like so I know for me, when I'm uninspired, it's usually because I'm not reading enough. There's literally nothing that's making me think, oh, I want to write, kind of thing. And I'm sensitive to that. So now I'm always like, Sarah, you got to get your reading up. Let's do the work, kind of thing. So yeah, that's probably the thing that I've learned along the way. Also, I've learned that not everyone is going to believe in you at first, but that's perfectly fine. To be fair, I have very low expectations of people in general.
Yeah, I think that's a way of overcoming it as well. Yeah.
But only because I really see people as human. Like I see my parents as human. Like, but it took me a long while to get there. Like I really see people as human. So who are flawed. So I don't expect people to be like. So if you say to me, "Oh, Sarah, like my dream is to be a world famous podcaster," I can say yeah, but it doesn't mean I'm checking on you every week to say how's that dream going and stuff like that, because unfortunately not everyone will do that. But that's okay as well, is what I'm saying. So in the beginning, when I wanted to write a book, I kept telling people I'm going to write a book, and everyone was thinking, oh no, she's just upset, she came out of some relationship, now she's saying she wants to write a book, like who cares, kind of thing. And I felt that, but because I was so determined, I was like, no, it doesn't matter. And but you do appreciate the people who do put in the work. So there are people who are really supportive, and you have to like really hold those people close, because as you can see with others, they don't have to. So not everyone will believe in you, but that's okay, because it sounds so cliched, but it doesn't make it any less true. You just need you to believe in you, and eventually they will as well. You think I don't have people who claim like, oh yeah, I knew when Sarah was writing a book, like sweetie, you weren't there when I was like
when we be shooting in the gym.
Yeah, when I was working hard, like you wasn't there.
But even though you've managed to publish the book and stuff, do you still find that there's people that still doubt you in regards to like your next step or your next move, or can they see it now, so they approach you more as an expert now instead of a novice?
Yeah and no. So yeah, as in like, yeah, people ask me literally all the time, like how do I do a book, or I'm really into poetry, how do I get started, or blah 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 blah. And then there's some people where you write, I know it's hard because I don't want to say, there's some people who like, oh yeah, they don't believe in me or don't think I should be there. Like I actually just don't watch people.
Yeah, like that's a good way of,
even like, if they did feel this way, like I don't care. Like sometimes when you're new in the industry, you can spend so much time trying to impress people who actually have no bearing on your life. Like if you're trying to get better because you want to get better at your craft, that's something different. But if you're trying to get better to impress people, you're going to always be disappointed. And what you find is that all the people who love you, you're just ignoring them because you're like, oh, I didn't win this poetry prize, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. And you can get so confused, and it can be so disheartening. I've seen it to happen to so many people. And I've been in that kind of space myself where I've been like, oh, if I could just get this kind of accolade, then all these people would respect me. But when you strip that away, why do you need them to respect you?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, like, and when you let that go, actually, I found that actually, you that quote unquote accolades, they do come as you work on yourself and work on your craft, and you find that the things that you think matter generally don't matter as much. So. Yeah, I mean, for me, maybe there are people who don't believe in what I'm doing, but I don't care.
That's not your focus, yeah. and also there's difference in getting advice from an expert within the field and getting the opinions of a friend or like Joe around the corner, random Joe around the corner. So definitely, like, if you're going to do something, seek the expert advice 100%. From people that know within the field, and they tend to have your best interest at heart.
They do. Like, I can't agree with you more. If you're getting good advice from like an expert or someone you respect or a mentor, they're not trying to put you down. Like, they're actually trying to help you. And recently, because I'm like working on a new manuscript, I sent to a friend who's also a poet and a writer, and I respect her so much. And all her notes that I went through, I really agreed with them, because I've stopped taking it so personally that at the end of the day I want it to be the best it can be. So actually she's read this and she's like, oh, okay, I proper like loved the way you started off strongly here, but actually I felt this could be a bit better. Or have you thought about a better way of rephrasing this? Or actually I thought this bit was slightly clumsy actually. You're going to go back and put in the work, because when you read it back again, you're like, it's a million times better.
Yeah. It's been refined by someone that knows,
100%. Like, sometimes it's so... When I'm like checking someone else's work, or if I'm like reading through someone else's work, I can always tell when someone hasn't read it out aloud.
For real.
One thing we always forget when we're... everything we write has a natural rhythm to things.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my mentors saying that you need to read your work aloud and see if you can just clap to it. Not because it's a song, not because it rhymes, nothing like that. It's to find a natural rhythm.
Yeah.
And you find that sometimes when you read something aloud, it just, like, even when you're, I don't know, if you're writing a long worded email, you can, when you read it aloud, you think, that doesn't sound right. That sounds all over the place, because you're hearing the words, and we forget to do those things. And so that's what I mean by it's really good when someone's giving you feedback, that you just remember, like, they're trying to help you. Don't want people out there who aren't very nice, then don't give your work to them. But if you give it to someone who you trust, and not just within writing, any field, if you're like asking for feedback, just be open to receive it.
100%.
That's all.
Yeah. What's the new work you're currently partaking in?
So I'm currently working on a new collection.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's interesting because this collection, I feel like it's more of a mature version of myself.
Yeah. Is it a continuation of your life?
No, not really. It's more what I've learned. So the book kind of talks about the idea of like thinking about, so I'm still thinking about love, but it's from an idea of not understanding that love is not something that we own or belongs, like it doesn't belong to us, but it's something that we experience. And when we understand that we only experience people, we can accept it, whether it's going to be 5 days, 5 years, a lifetime. Like, we can actually just take it for what it is, as opposed to being like, I own you, you said you loved me,
and that's it.
There. Like, because that's how we hurt ourselves over and over and over again. So I guess I'm kind of looking at love in a wider sense, and the things that I've learned through different experiences that I've had. The book has so many has themes of like still being black, being a woman, navigating the world where
is there mini poems
like
in this book, by the way? Just to clarify.
No, actually, so this book so this book is still a collection of poetry, but it has extended prose, which are kind of similar to, best way to describe it, extended prose is like almost like short stories.
Oh, okay, so
so there's like some extended prose, but there's also short poems as well. So that's why like this book has, like, writing this manuscript has been so much more harder because it's physically requiring more of me. Like more of me, like more of like things I've learned, more skill, just more of me. And I'm really hoping that my audience is able to grow along with me as I grow, because sometimes people know you for a particular kind of thing, as in like, we want some short quotes, we want this, that's it. But
now you're taking them in a different direction.
Yes, I'm hoping that they're willing to come on a journey with me, that as I grow, they can see that within the work. But I do believe that that they will see that, because I'm literally putting it out there.
Is there a particular date and a name for the project here, or is it
so I do have a name.
It's not ready to,
but I'm keeping it close to my chest.
Fair enough. We'll keep track of it and wait for it to come out.
I do have a name. A date, not so much just yet. Conversations are still very much in place at the moment. In terms of how that's all going to work. But yeah, I'm really excited for it, because I felt like I knew it was coming up to time for me wanting to do another one.
How long has it been? Like 2 years? 2 years? 3 years?
Yeah,
now?
so 2017 it came out, and obviously we're coming into 2020, and so it'll be like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But I wanted to take my time. Like I didn't want to just be like churning stuff out. Like for me, it really is about the work. It's about like putting stuff out there that I will feel proud of. Aside from anything that comes out of it, I've always wanted to write a collection, because I said to myself, imagine if your grandparents like wrote a poetry collection. Think about how much you'd understand them.
You'll be so sick.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like I want like years to come, and maybe it's literally my ego, but I want like someone to read it and be like, wow, I really understood her.
And that could be generational as well. So your grandkids, great grandkids will be able to read it and get a deeper understanding.
And our words last so much longer than anything else. When you think about like literature, when we've wanted to understand anything about the world, we've gone to literature, we've gone to text. Like, do you know what I mean? So it was literally like my stamp in the world, being like, hey, I was here in this moment, and this is what I learned.
Oh, amazing. So that's absolutely sick.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely be looking out for that. So before I let you go, I know it's a super hot day.
I'm so hot.
It is ridiculously hot in here.
Myself like a million times.
This is the first time I'm wearing shorts on the podcast, so you know how hot it is. It's hella raw. But what would some of your advice be to any aspiring writers out there? So not just poetry, like any writers that you would want to...
Do not be in a rush to publish, honestly, because once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough. Do not be in a rush to publish. I get so many emails from people who are like, I'm ready to publish, I want to do this. How did you do it? And it's like, how many times have you gone over your manuscript? How many times has it been edited? How many times, like, because honestly, it's about the work. Like, if you want your book to be successful, have a damn good manuscript, and then no one can like test it, because it's such a beautiful piece of work. So I can't stress enough, do not be in a rush to publish. Like, work on your manuscript, let it go through a process of editing. Editing's always the hard bit. Like, getting those notes back and having to fix it, that's hard, especially when you are so protective over your work. Sometimes it can feel like a jab to you, but it's not. It's because the work can get better. So yeah, don't be in a rush to publish. Stick with it, because you can do it. And that's like, it sometimes can feel like such a monumental task, and sometimes so easy to see the end and think, I feel so far away from it. But just stick with it. Like, if you are a writer, give yourself a plan, stick to it. Like anything, you might have inspiration, but you need discipline. 100%. Discipline is super, super important. There are times where I'm like, the words aren't coming, but my laptop is in front of me, and I'm like, we go make something happen. Because I've got a deadline, you know, and I want it to come out. So, stick with it. Discipline's important. Don't be in a rush to publish. That is my advice. And you will get stuck in your own head. I'm telling you, it's a given.
It's always that creative
self-doubt. I'm telling you, when you are writing, you'll be telling yourself, oh, this is trash, this is blah 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 blah. When you are going down that road, take a step back. Maybe give it a day or two, read it again, and I'm telling you, sometimes you're like, oh, I wrote that. It's not too bad. So don't be in a rush to publish. Work on your craft. Stay disciplined, and don't get in your own heads.
No, that's amazing. Appreciate that advice as well, and I appreciate you coming down today on this super hot day to share your knowledge. I mean, it's been invaluable. Like, I've actually soaked up and taken quite a lot of it, even though I'm not a writer. But in terms of like the inspiration behind your journey and you getting up and actually doing it, because since I started this podcast, there's a general theme that I'm starting to notice about my guests, and a lot of them, it's just a case of they got up and they've done it. Like, regardless of all of the boundaries, all of the negative energy they had initially, all of the doubts, they just got up and done it. And when they did do it, there was a ricochet effect, which I can see in your life story as well. So there's a ricochet effect of doing it, seeing the initial results. And there's a quote actually that I read that it was a talk that I was listening to, and the lady was talking about passion, and she had a different twist on passion. She said there's no such thing as one dimensional passion, but what passion to her is the energy that she puts 100%. Into anything that she does.
100%.
Absolutely anything that she does. And then when you start seeing the results, that's when the true passion comes out. 100%. Do you know what I mean? So for instance, when I was younger, if I wanted to be a footballer, but it didn't happen. But if I did become a footballer, or if I did start seeing progression, and I was that top tier guy, I would have ended up developing that passion for
100%.
it. So sometimes what we need to do is like we're rubbing the stones against each other because we're not seeing fire. We're like, oh, now I'm gonna give up. Now it's dead.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly pushing and you're constantly going at it, when the fire does come, it does light you up, and you do develop the passion for it. So
like that's perfect. I completely agree with that. And sometimes because you've got so much energy and all that passion, it can get quite confusing when you're good at multiple things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't agree with what you said more. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And focus is obviously an essential part of that. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming in today. So hopefully we'll definitely catch up another time where like it's slightly cooler, or I've got a silent little fan or aircon built in here somehow because I am struggling. But yeah, appreciate it. We'll definitely catch up again. So
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Boom. Thanks for that.